Good. Okay. I'm live right now. So we're live. And I want you to just let me know when you want me to start and I'll start. Okay. What's that? Hello? Let's try again. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that with the other guys that I thought they were saying give it 5 minutes for everybody, but you're saying what you think just. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I hit they, you know. Let me call him right back, and then William, I'm going to call you right after. Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to start. So if you've been watching me just sitting here, I apologize. We weren't sure if we had everybody here, and I'm in the United States, so it's harder for me to see everybody. Anyway, I want to thank Unique Coaching Center and Clarity Learning and anybody who is helping to educate and further society. So my name is Ron Seagal. I'm going to connect us to a little PowerPoint. And we'll make sure it's connected for you. And then William, I'll let you be my, all right. Good, I just have to make sure this is gonna connect. Well, okay, can you see that, William? Is the slide showing up? Okay, all right. We're just making sure the slide is showing up. Okay, good. All right, my name is Ron Seagal. I'm the president of True Community Education. There's my email if you at any time want to reach out to me. And I'm a teacher, and I've been involved in a lot of curriculum development, and I have a nonprofit that gives free tutoring to underserved children. So one thing that I wanted to say is that if you were to look at the legal situation in India, which I know you know far more than I do, but I think there's just two words that sort of sum up a very large situation. Just two words. And those are pending cases. I know this is a huge, huge situation. I think a lot of people are aware of it, and a lot of things are being done about it, and there's still a lot to do. I just wanted to add one thought to that situation, and that is there's not going to be any fast, effective justice unless there's fast, effective education. So one of the reasons is because, one, to get the number of people in the justice system, you need to educate a lot of people. But secondly, when you don't have education broadly available, you run into more crime, you run into more conflict, and you run into all the situations that are going to overload the justice system. And memorization is not education. And I want to sort of focus on what would be one single principle that we could focus on for education to start turning it in the right direction. and that's communication. There's a little quote here from a study book that says that one's ability to communicate can spell the difference between success or failure in all aspects of living. So if we want to start looking at education as communication, let's say a person communicates, they use words that the other person doesn't understand. Me gustan las bicicletas. The other person doesn't understand. They need to clarify it. And he says, I mean, I like bicycles. We get communication, we get understanding. Simple visual example, somebody has a thought, they express it in words, it gets across, the thought gets across to the other end of the line, and we have communication occurring. On the other side, we could have a thought, he puts it into words, and now the communication is broken. The person's thought is not understood at the other end, and we get a violation of communication, and that causes problems and an upset. And the reason I'm stressing is communication is because I showed a real life example, but when you're reading a book in any study, this is occurring all the time. Here's an author, they have a thought. You can see I like just making up things with chicken, but he has a thought. He then turns that thought into words. There's a communication attempt. He's taking the ideas, he's putting them into words. They go into a book, and what we want to occur, of course, is that exact same thought. The author is communicating at a distance through the book. And we need to understand, how do we get communication to occur, not just memorization? You could say that good communication gives you the right answer or understanding. I'm going to give an example with math. And it says here, to answer an addition problem correctly, you have to add the numbers 4, 2, 3, and he's got the concept of 9. Let's say one of the numbers was unclear and covered. At that point, the person will not get the right answer. There's one piece of the communication that's preventing a full communication. Again, from a study book here, it says that it is catastrophic. It's like a catastrophe. It is catastrophic to go on past or ignore a misunderstood word or symbol, as one simply will not understand what he is studying. Let me give you an example. Let's say I had a bunch of students in the room and I presented this sentence to them. And I asked them, do you understand this sentence? And let's suppose that all of them, or a majority of them, said, I don't understand this sentence. So I say to them, focus. You need to focus better. So they all start focusing very carefully. They focus for the next 10 minutes, but they still don't understand. I can also have them just repeat it back to me, and they can repeat it back precisely, and they still don't understand. What's really preventing the understanding? Is it because they're bad children? Is it because they can't memorize it? Is it because they're not focusing? It's probably going to be a single word, and that's bibliophiles. They don't know what it means. So I could clear it up for them. A bibliophile is a person who loves reading and or collecting books. Biblio is a root that means book, and phile, one who loves. Once they understand that a bibliophile is just somebody who loves books, then they can understand the sentence. It's as simple as that, but it makes a night and day difference because we achieve communication. I'm going to give you another example in math, and because I run the math department at my school, and I've done a lot of work with kids in math. Very common, they see the little symbol for pi, and they don't understand, or they say it's just 3.14. Now, if I ask a student, why is pi 3.14? Is that 3.14 ounces of apple juice? Is it 3.14 miles? Is it 3.14 pounds of rock? What is it? They have no idea. And I'm showing you here sort of a way they give a formula. There's not a really high communication value. You're not really getting it across. Perhaps a better way, and again, more visual, would be to show a circle and suppose it's a perfect circle. And what I might tell a student is I say, let's suppose the distance across the circle is 1 foot, goes through the center. And let's say the distance around the circle was made out of string, and I could cut the string and lay it out flat. We would find that if the circle was a perfect circle and it was 1 foot across, and then we measured it, it'd be 3.14 feet. They kind of get a little visual by seeing, okay, if I could cut the distance around the circumference and lay it out, I could see it's about 3 times as big as the part going across, the diameter. It's always about 3.14 times bigger. And then they can start getting the idea. So if it was 1 mile across and it was a perfect circle, it'd be 3.14 miles around, and you can have them draw it out and get a visual. So communication is occurring and you're getting actual understanding. So that pi isn't just a random number, but it's showing a relationship between the outside of the circle, called the circumference, and the diameter going across. I'm going to give you another example in math, 3/4 of a cake. Typically, children will understand that the 4 on the bottom means to cut it into 4 parts. And they'll often understand that the 3 means take 3 of them, or consider 3, 3/4 of a cake. Many times I've found students, when you say, what about 8 cakes? I want to give you 3/4 of 8 cakes. And they don't understand. What I'm showing here is just a bunch of symbols without much communication. And this is typically how it's shown. And you can get the student to memorize. Of course, when you do that, when you just give a bunch of memorization, then they can maybe do the problems on the worksheet every time, but then you give them word problems that are mixed up and they don't know, well, do I add, do I subtract, do I multiply? Because all along they really weren't understanding. What's a better way to show 3/4 of 8 cakes? I could show 8 cakes, and now I have to teach them that the 4, in this case, isn't making 1 cake into 4. Now I have a group. So I need to make these 8 cakes into 4 groups. So now that's visually showing what the 4 in the denominator, the bottom of the fraction, is showing. And now the 3 is 3 of those groups. It's 3 out of 4 groups, and they can visually see that 3/4 of 8 equals 6. If they're just shown the symbols, as we did on the very top, they're not necessarily getting a communication and understanding. Here's again an example of where a visual sketch could help to achieve understanding, along with, as we noted earlier, really understanding what do the words mean. One of my other favorites, anytime I work with a student, we have a pledge to our flag in America, and I'm showing a person on the right who's saying it but doesn't understand it. Usually I start by asking a student, when I'm going to work with them, have you ever said that pledge of allegiance to our flag? And they'll say, yes, every day in school. Then I ask them a few words. Well, what does this mean? Or what does this mean? They have no idea. They're just chanting it. I want to change their mind about understanding. It's not just saying the words. Here I have the Indian National Pledge, and I hope the translation is correct. But I noted in bold some words that very likely kids may not understand. It says, India is my country. All Indians are my brothers and sisters. I love my country, and I'm proud of its rich and varied heritage. So just as an example, and it may, of course, vary with different students, what they understand and what they don't, and you have to find out. But some people might think rich just means you have a lot of money. That's one definition of rich, but rich can mean it's full of substance. It has much to it. It's not weak or shallow or little. It's a lot. So that's a rich heritage. It's full, varied, that it has many different parts to it. And children might understand that heritage is what is passed down to the next generation. And again, there's many potential words. At the bottom, I put in bold pledge. I know in my country, I ask students, what does pledge mean? And unfortunately, it's a shame to see that they do not understand. A pledge is just a serious promise, I tell them. You pledge that you will be loyal to your family, or you pledge to donate money. And again, at the bottom, prosperity, Success means success in doing well and thriving. These are ways you can start to change the mind of a student, is you take something that they've said every day or many times, and then you ask them some of the words and you start to get them to think about understanding and not just repeating. I want to now look at this in human relations, and then I'll connect it back to education. Let's say these are two people, they're friends, or let's think of kids when they're very young and they want to learn everything. They're friends with the world. They're searching, they want to pick things up, they want to touch them, they want to learn about everything. They're eager to learn. So let's say these two people are friends, they're getting along well. But then, as you can have in school, they have a misunderstanding, right? Everybody's experienced this with a friend, with a spouse, with your brother or sister, with a business partner. You experience a misunderstanding. You said something and they didn't get it, or you thought you had this agreement. And after that misunderstanding, you separate a little bit. You're not as close to them anymore. Well, when you're not as close and you don't feel that brotherhood with another person, now it sort of seems okay to do something bad to them and you want to attack. And then eventually you're going to go away. I don't want to be in that relationship. Well, we've all experienced that. But what about, how does this play out in school? And again, let's look at the same scenario. And again, like I was saying, you start out in school, you're very connected. You want to learn. You're very engaged. Everything is interesting to you. But you start accumulating, building up misunderstandings. It could even be, like I said, you're just saying the national pledge every morning and you don't understand that. You got a little bit of fog there. And then some other words in math and science and history, more and more fog and misunderstanding. And now school is less important. You separate from school a little bit. And now maybe you even separate from society a little bit. And this is why earlier I was talking about the justice system, because these misunderstandings make you disconnect. And it can be disconnecting from a person, a subject, or even really society at large. When you don't understand, you don't feel a part. And again, now that they're disconnected from society, they might get into bad activities, they might get into crime, conflict, and they're going to leave school. Or they might not physically leave school, but they're going to mentally leave school and just put their body there, but they're not really there. The break point in all this, the really key point is where children move, I have on the left, from learning how to read, which happens very early, and then over to reading to learn. So learning how to read, then reading to learn. So learning how to read, you're just learning the sounds, you're learning basic sounding out and phonics and simple readers, and a lot of it is being read to you and so forth. You're just learning how to read. Here in America, typically right around 4th grade is where it really becomes, well, you're no longer just learning how to read. You've got to pick up a book and read to learn. Many studies have shown that it is this pivot point that if you do not correctly get them to make this transition, all of a sudden they didn't really learn how to read, over here on the left, and now they're being asked to read in order to learn things. That goes over their head, they can't do it, and all of those phenomena of misunderstanding and breaking apart are going to occur year after year, and the train of school just keeps moving forward and it doesn't get any better. So we have to focus on all children, all grades, but a very crucial point is getting that initial ability to read and giving them study skills so they know how to read and how to read to learn. At that point, you've given them a cushion against all the possible misunderstandings. I want to give you a quote from a research study. And in this research study, it says, students who struggled with reading in early elementary school grew up to make up 88% of those who did not receive a high school diploma. So those who did not get a high school diploma, 88%, it was traced back, were those who just missed that early reading. I'm going to continue. That made low reading schools an even stronger predictor than poverty. In fact, 89% of students in poverty who did read on level by third grade graduated on time. So I really want to make sure that sinks in, that that's understood. In other words, here in the United States, some people would think, well, these children are poor and they have a disadvantage, which is true. However, if they were given the chance to read and properly taught to read, they could graduate. It wasn't that they were poor. The bigger factor was that they just couldn't read. So this is huge. And we find by research that this little make-break point is going to show up high school, dropout, problem for society, can't work, can't be a contributing member of society. Interestingly, early mathematics also plays a role. And as somebody who's taught a lot of math too, I'm going to explain why that is also a key. Here's another research study that says that preschool mathematics knowledge predicts achievement even into high school. It's very interesting. Most surprising is that it also predicts later reading achievement even better than early reading skills. In fact, research shows that doing more mathematics increases language ability. All right, well, all of this you have to take with judgment. There's different areas, different kids. But one thing I can say for sure from experience, when you teach math properly, there's a couple of things that occur. One, math is the communication of the physical world. In other words, rocket ships moving and predicting hurricanes and their path. Everything about the physical world, how do we communicate about it? We communicated about it with math. We use symbols to communicate the motion of stars and cars and everything. So it is a big part of communication, as we were talking about communication. And if you can't communicate in that language, it's like not knowing a very key language in your country. It'd be like here not knowing English. You can't speak mathematics. But not only that, if you give good mathematics education, that it doesn't just include worksheets, but includes real life word problems. Because in the real world, when you have problems like how do I get a rocket ship up to the International Space Station, it's not given to you on a sheet of paper like a little drill. You have to figure things out. So when you give kids word problems where they have to think things through, it demands precise understanding. So by getting children to really work with word problems and have to figure them out, you are really building their language skills because they have to precisely understand and really look at things carefully and put pieces together. So it is a great language builder as well. Again, the bottom line or the key here is we have to give the foundation or we're going to lose them, or we have to repair that foundation. Again, I want to just go back to my original point in terms of, and the reason I'm bringing this up specifically with justice is because I know it's a big situation. I know that many of you, or perhaps all of you, are law students or professors or teachers, that we need to know that there's not going to be fast, effective justice unless there's fast and effective education. And we need to start orienting towards communication as our focal point, is what we want to focus on, is this material communicating to the student? Can I use visuals to help that communication occur? And am I making sure that they really understand what those words mean? If they're saying the National Pledge, are they really understanding it? If they're reading a book, are they understanding it? I wanted to give you these simple but very powerful principles to think about, but then I also wanted to see if there was questions or things that anybody there, so I wanted to see if it's possible to open that up. And perhaps, let's see if I can, I can't see my, I'm gonna look at the board. And maybe let me call, let me just see. I want to again ask if there's any questions or comments. And then, William, do you think I should call Vipul and see if that makes it easier to connect? We're good. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, good. Good. Well, the last thing one thing I will say, let me just see if I can flip this appropriately here. Let's see, there we go. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, so I'm gonna, my email address is there. As I said, I'm a teacher. I oversee the math department in a school. I'm a longtime teacher and work in curriculum and have a nonprofit that is doing programs. And I will be working together with Clarity Learning and the Unique Coaching Center to oversee and help with some free tutoring programs in India. And what I focus on is peer tutoring, where you train kids to tutor other kids, because that is a way that we can reach many people. There's not enough teachers, so we need to activate students as teachers, and it's a very big win-win. So this peer tutoring program, this program with students teaching other students, has done extraordinarily well here, and we will be piloting it there. I have an app that will be used to help manage it. So for those who maybe are interested in setting up peer tutoring where you can train kids to tutor other kids, you can feel free to email me as well. And I'm going to see if there's any other questions other than that. Again, just feel free to reach out to me. And I hope that this helped you, and I certainly want to help you as well. All right, I'm going to check with Vipul to see if there's anything else he wants, and then I think we're good. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and I hope to be in communication with you.